In the annals of the SCP Foundation's history, there have been plenty of anomalies that have kept personnel awake at night. Entities that prey on humans, either devouring them as a source of food or toying with innocent people for their own twisted amusement. Beings that can rewrite reality, erase entire lives from existence on a whim, and even creatures who delight in sowing chaos. Yet of all the anomalies known to the Foundation, there is perhaps one that is more terrifying than any other. It has been designated SCP-5776, and it is 100%, undeniably, without a shadow of a doubt, most definitely a Keter-class entity. And despite what you may have been told, SCP-5776 is not a common food product. According to its entry on the SCP Foundation's database, SCP-5776 is a highly dangerous entity of near immeasurable power. Researchers have concluded that this anomaly possesses enough raw power to cause devastating destruction to human civilization, and its primary goal is to do just that. This entity exists to destroy everything that it can, seemingly simply because it can, and should it breach containment, little will be able to stop it from achieving this goal. The SCP Foundation considers the continued containment of SCP-5776 to be of the utmost importance for the continued survival of the human race. SCP-5776 has been observed to possess the capability to drastically alter its physical form, changing all aspects of its shape and mass at will. Closer spectral analysis carried out by Foundation experts in the field of anomalous metamorphosis has revealed that the entity is even capable of changing its own cellular genetic makeup. This metamorphic ability is largely why SCP-5776 is considered to be such a considerable threat. There is widespread concern that if freed from containment, the anomaly will be able to seamlessly disguise itself in order to avoid detection and recontainment. In this scenario, nothing will be able to prevent SCP-5776 from carrying out its primary objective, swiftly and with brutal efficiency. Researchers and Foundation emergency response strategists have conferred and agree that once freed, SCP-5776 will be able to enact the total extinction of the entire human race within a matter of days, potentially even within a few hours. While still currently contained, the anomalous shapeshifter has expressed an intense eagerness to escape Foundation custody. It also appears to hold the Foundation in the highest contempt, frustrated at the organization responsible for confining it, and vowing to destroy them first, should it ever have the opportunity. Currently, SCP-5776 remains housed in a large containment cell, situated somewhere within Site-19. Given the significant danger posed by this entity, the exact location of its containment cell is classified. A reality anchoring device has been used to aid in containment and must remain attached to SCP-5776 at all times. Despite the effects of this device, SCP-5776 has shown itself to still be capable of carrying out its shapeshifting abilities, albeit only in a limited capacity. It cannot change itself into a form that would allow for it to quickly break free from containment. This is something that the entity expresses a near constant frustration at, finding the limitations on its anomalous abilities to be as much of an annoyance as it finds being contained to be. Whilst in containment, the anomaly has assumed a number of different forms, ranging from humanoid shapes that mimic members of Foundation personnel, including researchers, doctors, and even a member of the O5 Council. It has additionally assumed the form of several other SCP items, entities, and creatures. The exact anomalies it has impersonated are redacted in SCP-5776's file. However, notably, whenever the entity alters its appearance, it gains the abilities of whatever form it assumes. This has been particularly noticeable whenever SCP-5776 has mimicked other anomalies, gaining the properties of an object or creature through the means of anomalous impersonation. The Foundation considers this an additional reason that SCP-5776 is a significant threat. Although its ability to recreate the anomalous properties of other SCPs is dampened thanks to the reality anchoring device used to keep the creature contained, it has been unanimously agreed by multiple departments that SCP-5776 cannot learn of other anomalous entities within Foundation containment or those in the custody of other groups of interest. Efforts have been made to limit the information the creature has access to, in order to limit which SCPs it is aware of, in the hopes of restricting the potentially endless selection of alternate forms SCP-5776 can assume. Beyond recreating the appearance and abilities of other anomalies, SCP-5776 has also been known to take several forms considered unique to itself. However, it remains unknown to the Foundation which of these is its natural shape. There is debate among researchers over which form is SCP-5776's actual shape, though it has been known to materialize as an unknown large beast, an unidentified winged scorpion, and a giant amorphous entity. The entity's current form is a small, white cylinder, though it has been noted by researchers that the creature in no way resembles a small edible confectionery product, and it remains a frightening, imposing threat to the Foundation. Case in point, there exists a recovery log detailing the Foundation's initial encounter with SCP-5776, how it was discovered, and ultimately contained. However, under direct orders from an O5 Council member, this document has been removed in its entirety from SCP-5776's file. The reason? Its contents are deemed too disturbing, even for Foundation personnel. SCP-5776 is capable of communicating with researchers, and though this is normally dependent on the form it takes, the Foundation has mandated personnel to conduct interviews with the entity. The hope from Foundation higher-ups is that researchers will be able to reason with SCP-5776 over the course of continued conversations with it. These attempts have been met with varying results, the first interview being conducted by researcher Ox. Upon entry into the containment chamber to converse with the entity, researcher Ox was met with silence, attempting to nervously greet SCP-5776. The creature did not respond verbally, but changed its appearance to resemble SCP-redacted, which the researcher remarked as being highly frightening. Before they could finish their sentence, SCP-5776 imploded into a ball of fire, triggering an emergency site-wide lockdown. Sector 5 of Site-19 was severely charred in the resultant blaze, as was researcher Ox. A second interview was undertaken a month later by researcher Davis, though only once SCP-5776 had assumed an amorphous, gel-like form. It was hoped that this would be marginally safer than if it was impersonating another anomaly. At the beginning of the interview, SCP-5776 outright asked the researcher why it was being held by the Foundation. Researcher Davis explained that the entity was dangerous, as well as particularly terrifying and not at all cute. SCP-5776 acknowledged it was aware of this. When asked by researcher Davis if it had any comment about the damage it had caused to Sector 5 during the prior interview, the anomaly only responded by stating it would do it again. Before the interviewing researcher could question SCP-5776 further, the entity violently released a burst of plasma-based fire, presumably to make good on its promise to repeat the previous month's incident. However, fortunately, automated blast doors within the creature's containment unit closed in time, preventing another fire. Following this incident, any interviews or other direct communication with SCP-5776 were forbidden under any circumstances, though this wouldn't stop it from continually attempting to escape. On an undisclosed date, sometime during the year 2012, SCP-5776 was able to escape the confines of its cell during the chaos of a mass-scale containment breach at Site-19. After breaching containment, SCP-5776 began to depart the Foundation facility and head west for unknown reasons, though it appeared to be heading for multiple large population centers, including a major city. Given the significant danger posed by SCP-5776 and the potential destruction it could unleash if it was able to reach a populated settlement, 2 high-ranking mobile task forces were sent to intercept SCP-5776. Mobile Task Force Epsilon 11, also known under the codename Nine-Tailed Fox, is usually tasked with handling internal security operations within the Foundation. This Special Operations Force is deployed to Foundation sites when standard containment protocols are inadequate to combat a breach, or if multiple containment breaches are imminent. They operate under the oversight of MTF Alpha-1, codenamed Red Right Hand, who were also deployed in order to secure the threat of SCP-5776. The Red Right Hand are named as such given that they report directly to the O5 Council and are only deployed in situations that require the strictest operational security. Their ranks are filled with the best and most loyal operatives within the Foundation, and the O5 Council deemed their deployment an absolute necessity in order to recapture SCP-5776. With both Red Right Hand and Nine-Tailed Fox in pursuit, SCP-5776 was discovered having assumed the form of another redacted SCP. Mobile Task Force operatives were able to establish visual contact with the escaped entity at roughly 1:30 a.m., little over half an hour after it had breached containment. At 2 a.m. that same morning, after requesting permission to engage from the O5 Council, Red Right Hand were given a green light to launch an all-out assault against SCP-5776. They were instructed to utilize explosives to slow the entity down once it was within firing range. Complying with their order, both MTF Alpha-1 and MTF Epsilon-11 opened fire. They deployed a barrage of high-explosive artillery shells, remote-guided missiles, and shoulder-launched ordnance that quickly engulfed SCP-5776 in an eruption of explosive fire. Autonomous drones conducting flybys kept close watch on the anomalous shapeshifter, with thermal imaging feeds providing operatives on the ground with an overhead view of the creature. The explosive bombardment lasted for 3 hours. By 5 o'clock that morning, explosive reserves were running low, and Red Right Hand operatives issued requests for a resupply, which arrived shortly after. 45 minutes later, with the Foundation still in pursuit, SCP-5776 was no closer to being subdued, and the surrounding area had sustained considerable damage. The entity turned around to face the mobile task forces pursuing it and assumed the form of a large dragon. MTF operatives continued firing upon the creature, but its scales appeared impervious to conventional firepower. Shooting at SCP-5776 in its dragon form did nothing to slow it down. The situation was looking increasingly dire. 2 of the Foundation's most well-equipped mobile task force units had so far been unable to subdue the creature. They needed backup. An emergency anomalous requisition request was issued to the O5 Council for urgent approval to deploy SCP-Redacted to the field. Aware of just how dangerous SCP-5776 was, the Foundation's leadership permitted the requested anomaly to be dispatched, but although personnel moved quickly to enact the order, they weren't fast enough. By 7 o'clock, SCP-5776 had destroyed the nearby town of Redacted, causing significant civilian casualties and leaving a path of destruction in its wake. It was only after the town had been obliterated that SCP-Redacted arrived on the scene. The pair of anomalies quickly engaged in a violent altercation, though SCP-5776 seemed to underestimate the power of its opponent. After 28 minutes of trading blows, the requisitioned anomaly was able to emerge victorious, slowing SCP-5776 down long enough for it to be restrained and returned to containment back at Site-19. There are few anomalies as horrifying or as dangerous as SCP-5776. In fact, Foundation researchers estimate it ranks highly among the most dangerous known anomalies in the world, let alone just those in Foundation custody. A malicious shape-changer capable of destroying anything and everything if it wishes, and it is definitely not cute. But what if everything the Foundation knew about SCP-5776 was wrong, and not just by mistake, but by design? Buried in the depths of the anomalies file on the SCP database, beneath layers of encryption and restricted behind a Level 1 5776 classification, is a secret file. Any unauthorized attempts to view it are met with immediate disciplinary action. Any personnel who are found to have read this document, or, God forbid, revealed its existence to SCP-5776, are to face the most severe punishment. SCP-5776 is not what the Foundation thinks it is. It isn't even what it thinks it is. As it turns out, SCP-5776 is not one of the most dangerous anomalies the Foundation has ever faced, not even close. In actuality, this info-hazardous entity poses next to no threat to human life at all. It merely wishes to be perceived that way. Classified as safe, SCP-5776's true anomalous capability lies in how it is able to alter any recorded descriptions of itself, from rewriting the text of its SCP database entry, or even altering images, video, and audio recordings of itself. It typically alters these descriptions to depict itself as a frightening, highly dangerous anomalous entity capable of unleashing an XK-class end-of-the-world scenario. However, it can only alter information about it when it is made aware of the exact mediums it is presented in, which is why keeping its true file concealed from this anomaly is considered a disciplinary offense. Usually, researchers have found it easy to tell when a document has been altered by SCP-5776. Linguistic analysts have noted specific patterns that are present throughout the anomalously rewritten version of its SCP file. These are especially prevalent in the incorrect grammar and abrupt statements. While these mistakes are believed to be unintentional, they provide clear indicators that SCP-5776 has tampered with the text. Localized backups of any Foundation material that references SCP-5776 are to be maintained and regularly viewed by a human member of personnel for the presence of any of these indicators. Rather than being a mysterious, shape-changing entity of unknown origins, as it would have people believe, SCP-5776's exact appearance and its discovery are well documented within the accurate version of its file. The anomaly itself bears little distinction from an ordinary marshmallow, measuring approximately half an inch in diameter and around 1.5 inches tall. In its neutral state, SCP-5776 bears a smiley face, which analysis reveals was hand-drawn on with a standard black marker pen. If SCP-5776 learns that it has been described or depicted in a non-threatening manner, the marshmallow's face will immediately shift, instead portraying an angered expression, usually with the addition of eyebrows. SCP-5776 has also been witnessed as being capable of movement, though in a limited capacity, making only small hops or swaying gently, enough to fall onto its side and roll. What remains unknown is whether or not SCP-5776 possesses sentience. However, its recovery has been documented in the full untampered version of its file. On May 29, 2015, Foundation Agent Addison discovered the anomalous marshmallow in the staff break room of Site-19. While rummaging around in a bag of Haribo-branded marshmallows, Agent Addison was recorded on security cameras pausing when she discovered a single marshmallow with a drawn-on smiley face inside. Pulling it out of the bag and examining it, Agent Addison made a single, short expression of how adorable she found the object, which caused it to start wiggling in her hand. SCP-5776's face switched to its angry expression, and in surprise, the Foundation agent dropped the object onto the floor. While Agent Addison shrieked in surprise, SCP-5776 rolled away into the corridor before it was stopped by Site Director Moose, later being given its anomalous classification and assigned containment procedures. An extensive investigation into the Haribo company has caused the Foundation to conclude they had no involvement with the creation of SCP-5776. To date, 3 individual tests have been conducted involving the anomalous marshmallow to test the limits of its info-hazardous abilities. In the initial test, taking place on the 11th of June 2015, SCP-5776 was positioned directly in front of D-Class personnel member D-4415, who was then instructed to write a visual description of the object. They were told not to read their description aloud or show its contents to SCP-5776 until they had finished. After their first sentence, D-4415 was then told to show SCP-5776 how it had been depicted, which caused their writing to be erased and rewritten. There had been no anomalous activity up until the marshmallow was shown the written description, at which point it displayed its angered expression and the contents was changed to describe a hostile, shape-shifting anomalous entity. This text was then erased and rewritten again, and in response, SCP-5776 displayed a less angry but still irritated expression. These alterations were further changed, implying SCP-5776 could tell when text it had previously altered was edited or rewritten. The second test took place on June 2nd the same year, wherein D-4415 was instructed to write a simple phrase asking SCP-5776 if it could think, speak, or otherwise communicate. Researcher Gray was noted as making the addition of "you little puffball" in the hopes of triggering a reaction from the anomaly. When SCP-5776 was exposed to the written question, the text was once again anomalously changed to describe a shape-shifting entity that was capable of triggering an XK end-of-the-world scenario. A small ink smudge on the opposite side of the page was also found, and after being analyzed more closely, appeared to have been made up of the word "embarrassed," written around 250 times in the same spot. Researchers are still unsure if this was a programmed response or if SCP-5776 has been displaying evidence of sentience during testing. Similarly, it remains unclear why it chooses to describe itself as a dangerous entity, whether this is due to its own insecurity surrounding its true non-threatening form, or whether this is a reflection of how SCP-5776 sees itself. Over 2 years later, a third test was conducted, this time with D-5014, a member of D-Class personnel who had formerly worked as a tattoo artist. D-5014 was instructed to draw an accurate representation of the anomalous marshmallow, on a provided sheet of paper while facing away from SCP-5776. When they were finished, a researcher then described D5014's drawing out loud. Approximately halfway through the process, they were interrupted and told to show the depiction to SCP-5776 and then continued drawing. When SCP-5776 was informed of the nature of the drawing by the present researcher, the anomaly once again displayed an angry expression. Though this time it did not alter the drawing, leading the Foundation to conclude that, unlike with textual descriptions of it, SCP-5776 needs to first directly observe visual depictions of it like photos and artwork. When D5014 showed the anomalous marshmallow the drawing, the finished piece was altered dramatically to resemble an unknown creature. D5014 continued to attempt to accurately draw SCP-5776, but suddenly seemed unable to, causing them mild distress and leading to the cessation of testing. SCP-5776's entry in the SCP database would have remained accurate and unaltered were it not for an incident that took place on May 22, 2020. Several junior researchers were reprimanded for revealing SCP-5776's official Foundation documentation to the anomaly, reading them loudly outside its containment area. This resulted in SCP-5776's entry being completely rewritten to center on its shape-shifting alter ego. Researcher Gray volunteered many hours of their time to recreate the original, accurate version of the file. Following the incident, SCP-5776's containment procedures were updated, requiring it to be held in a soundproof room in Sector 4 of Site-19. The marshmallow is kept within a glass container, visible from a nearby viewing window. Any Foundation personnel requiring access to SCP-5776 documentation must first ensure that the containment chamber window is fully blacked out. This is to prevent the anomaly from visually perceiving any descriptive material, thereby avoiding further unauthorized alterations to official records. Above all, personnel are instructed to remember that SCP-5776 is 100%, most definitely, a Keter-class anomaly. Check out the DrBob Patreon and become a junior researcher today. Now go and watch another entry from the files of DrBob, like SCP-2983, Choco Wonder Explosion Marshmallow Bites.